In the flesh, we have, and I can't be more grateful for this, Ben Stewart.
You know what I love about this shit? I didn't even know we were rolling there. Hey guys. But we started off talking about psychedelics then.
Yeah, I mean, psychoactivity, and I guess we could use that word, or you could say phanerothime, right? Like Aldous Huxley wanted to call it a phanerothime, but it was the bear. Augustus
right.
Stanley Osley wanted to say psychedelic.
Psychedelics.
But it's a soul-releasing agent. You're talking about medicine, so...
Yeah, that would be more calling it an entheogen, God from within, evoking God from within, using psychedelics, and that's shit that not all grandparents are talking about yet.
So you've been to Peru then? Is that how this all...
That's how it all started for me. Is you know what it was? I was reading a Daniel Pinchbeck book called 2012 Return of Quetzalcoatl.
Wow.
And I saw the word ayahuasca, and it was the first time that I'd seen it. And I instantly knew that I was going to try that. I didn't even read his entire description of like what it was like. I just saw the word and I was like, okay. So I Googled it at the time, and I saw that it's this Amazonian vine mixed with these plants out of fucking 80,000 species or something ridiculous. These two plants, one inhibits the stomach acids that would otherwise break down the DMT, so the DMT can get all the way into your past the blood-brain barrier. And I was like, whatever that is, I want to try it. And they were like, wait, there's more. There's shamans have been doing this for thousands of years. And I was like, fuck yeah, sign me up. And they're like, but wait, it's an intense experience. I was like, I've tried mushrooms before. I can do whatever. I can face whatever. Let me face all my shit right away. And I got exactly what I asked for. Go down to the Amazon in April of 2008 to get my ass handed to me.
Wow.
To be asking myself, not even asking myself, more poking fun at myself, like removed from myself, rocking in fetal position like a baby around my own vomit. But I removed myself from myself to look at myself, and I was saying, you fucking asked to be down here doing this shit. You asked to see all of this shit, and now it's coming true. And I couldn't appreciate it at the time, but a few months later, you know, when the initial shock of going to that kind of a realm, unprepared and coming back, maybe I was prepared, but it took me a while to integrate the experience. And then I was asked that October to go down to Brazil, Bahia, Brazil, an island off the coast of it, to do it again with a different group outside of a completely ritual context. There was a Colombian shaman, but it was outside of a ritual context. And that was different. And then my journey just kept, to be perfectly honest, I never asked to do ayahuasca except for the first time.
Right.
Now opportunities come up and I feel like, oh, she's calling again.
Right. It's like an agent kind of thing. Yeah, and you get the call. You choose to accept the mission.
Fuck yeah, totally.
So, I mean, I lived in Peru for like a year at one point, and when I was young, about the time I first saw Esoteric Agenda as I think it's your first.
That was 2008, yeah.
Yeah, so I was into mescaline and DMT and AMT and a few of the research chemicals which were available at that time. And some of them have the same active chemicals that are in ayahuasca. So it led me to find, I was just interested in trying ayahuasca. But ayahuasca is very different because it makes you have this physical sensation. You throw up. It's something you can't really suppress. And it's kind of like an exorcism mixed with a psychoactive experience. So it's...
Peyote also can make you, as the indigenous call, get well.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking throwing your innards to the outer. And they say in South America for ayahuasca, you do throw up. They don't call it getting well. It's purging. And it's the shit that needs to come out. And I know that like most people, when they think of it, they can't get out of the Nixon era mind frame that these are narcotics and people going off to lose reality for a while and check out. And in a way, not understanding that reality is multi-layered, and yes, you're coming to lose this reality for a bit, for sure, to find yourself deeper, because if really consciousness is in all things, then wherever you go on a psychedelic trip is also you. So you're discovering different chambers of your own intelligence that maybe you never looked at before, and, patterns and things that you never looked at. But it's not a Sunday breakfast with your grandparents. It's hard work. there's a bucket in front of you because you might lose your lunch. And it might come out the other way. It might come out through like screaming and yelling. Some people have fucking blissful experiences where, like, I was at a weekend with Jack Canfield, Chicken Soup for the Soul, and he was telling me of a story, or telling this group of a story of this other guy who apparently is just maybe super conservative or something, but the entire time he had a green goddess fucking him the entire time. And I was like, where that experience has never been my experience. I'm usually like getting fucked, you know, or like getting eaten, or facing down some of the stupidest and most naive shit that I've ever done. But it has this brilliant ability of getting you to see your actions and your behavior from the receiving end of it. Mm-hmm. You know, have you done ayahuasca?
Yeah, a number of times. But it also,
what's your experience?
My first one was really scary because, like, the first time I had it, I saw myself as death. Like, it was basically me wearing all black, and he grabbed me. He's like, "Don't F with me," you know. And I was like, "Okay." Like, that was really scary. And I ran home in my mind and like threw myself underneath all of my stuff and like hid, and then shattered into it. And I was like a baby, and it was really scary and dark. And around that time, a lot of like things happened in my life and shattered anyway. So maybe it was a good like paradigm shifting warning. But it was like, I was thinking, you know, I'm so young, I'm so powerful, I'm able to handle these things that ascended masters needed to spend all their lives training for. So by the time they were able to, their bodies were so physically weakened that they couldn't do what I might be able to do now. So I was kind of naive, I think, also. But there's been really positive experiences as well. You know, I mean, the thing that's also crazy about the plant is when you go down there, 500 miles away or more is where one plant grows from the other that make it possible for them to synthesize the medicine. So the idea that this even happened is crazy, because it kind of insinuates that there was like a culture that was built not on war but on trading, and trading for psychoactivity or theology or theosophy, some sort of shared lens experience of something broader than themselves. So it shows that there's a really strange and interesting culture. But when we look at drugs, like, I was interested in chemical drugs before ayahuasca. Like, they're all chemicals. They have a mechanism that they break down like gears. But ayahuasca seems different. It seems like there's actually like stored memory, like life, or some sort of releasing consciousness that happens. And it might be because the tree is producing this in the syrups and the crystals or plasma. And it seems like there could be, you know, it's one of those evidences of consciousness in plants that last after, you know, when we die, but a lot of times plants, they continue on. And a seed is like, you know, there's the kingdom of heaven in a mustard seed. So that's what makes ayahuasca seem so, you know, like so enticing. But also I think it's important to be very careful about like the Ouija board and what spirits you surround yourself with. Not everything is benevolent. And you shouldn't try to create a space that's dangerous for yourself to be possessed by. It seems like an interesting story about your friend, or the person who was, you know, having a sort of an Isis ritual. Like, it's like the Epic of Gilgamesh with Solomon and with the beast man, you know, the wild man has.
Enki.
Isis has she injects him with the staff, and he is tamed. You know, so. But a lot of ayahuasca experiences or DMT experiences, I think more and more, like I think Paul Stamets was talking about the Alexander Shulgin book Tikal and all the tryptamine drugs.
Oh yeah.
And there's an entire library of alternatives to, you know, medicine that we could be using that would be good for you.
Do you know the story in most lore of how the medicines made themselves known to the people?
Tell me. Yeah, no.
Well, like, the shamans all, like, this is pretty ubiquitous. You'll find it in South America and North America. You do find it elsewhere, just in other forms, but let's just stick with the Americas. Like, from North America to South America, peyote, it was the plant that sang to this woman who was pregnant and didn't have enough water, and she was alone in the desert. And this is the lore of it. In South America, because like peyote is pretty much North America. You get into South America, it's huachuma, it's very tall cacti. But for ayahuasca and even the master plants that they use in their diets before and after, the plants tell them, They tell them, like, we are this medicine. You take me, I'll teach you how to use that medicine. And so part of the real tradition of the ayahuasca healing is you are dieting on a master plant. You have the teas, and you're doing the teas, and you have very bland diet and these teas. And these teas are your specific master plant that is singing to you. And it's singing to you the Icaros. And Icaros are the patterns. These are Shipibo-looking, branching, in a sense, psychedelic-looking patterns. And this is what the songs represent, or how they represent themselves to the individual visually. So they make tapestries out of them. But each of those Icaros are actually sung by the plant in their lore. And when you're listening to those Icaros under the medicine, it actually helps drive the actual physiological, chemical structure of it into the psychological root of whatever it is, our disconnection from nature. And it's like, literally, it's plugging back in a cable that was loose. It's receiving transmission that's not anymore. So you said, like, I was just actually doing yahe, which is a Colombian form of ayahuasca that uses 5-MeO-DMT rather than the NN typically. And that it takes you to a different space. Yeah, you purge a lot more. It was an all-night ceremony. Usually they end around 2, 3. This goes till 8, 9 in the morning. It's super, super long. So even that puts you into a really altered state. But these songs are helping drive the medicine into your psychology.
By the way, I feel like the universe, if not ayahuasca's spirit, grandmother spirit itself, just like slammed on all the drums and made sure that it was like only certain people might be able to hear what we're talking about in their hearts of hearts, because they want to be very careful about this information. Honestly, I feel like that's real. And yeah, I think that's the thing.
The drums were fucking perfect.
They were going to make people really intense, though. It's going to be like, they're going to be like, wow, this is like that's it. That was it, hitting people.
I feel you.
I think, that's like real right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's beyond, you're experiencing it before you take it, I guess is what that means to me.
Well, you know what? Everyone says that. Actually, the Colombian shamans that I was doing ceremony with, they said the very same thing. They're like, I'm sure as soon as you said yes to coming here, you started noticing it was working. Of course, because your psychology knows what it's headed after. A lot of the times you say you don't really know what's going to come up in experiences, and that's definitely true, because there is that intelligence of the plant, of the Amazon basin, of probably planet Earth and beyond, coming into you. But like for me, I knew what was going to come up. I knew at least elements of what was going to come up, because I am now aware enough to know what I'm not facing and what I have some work to do on. And so I knew certain things would come up, and they absolutely did. In a sense, I could have intended them to come up so I could work on them in the medicine. And it's brilliant. I know a lot of people are like, well, these are just psychedelics. What you're doing is you're tripping out. And I say, that is the old paradigm, very limited way of thinking. These are tools. They're very powerful. I'll give you that. They're very powerful, but it's not inherently bad, just like a hammer is not inherently here to bash in a skull. It could do other things. So it's how it's wielded. And I really think the fear that's kind of based in a lot of the religious institutions, not religion, but religious institutions, the fear that's driven into that is because fear is the easiest way to understand the next outcome. Because if you can get people on the bottom of the Maslow's hierarchy, where they're in survival mode, you can predict their outcome a lot more. And fear loves control. Ego loves control. So we love controlling our life and not letting the majesty and the magic and the great mystery come in, because we want to feel like we're in control. And this bubbles out into institutions. You see it in all institutions. You see it in the hierarchy, the hierarchical structure, which again, there's nothing inherently wrong with the hierarchical structure. It's the way it's being wielded. So we don't have true kings who listen to their queens. We don't have the true nobles and knights. We have the shell and the facade and the names and the offices, and we shuffle people through them every couple of years, and we say that's a very prestigious and noble chair.
Right.
You're only talking about the chair. You're not talking about the person in it. You
The
know,
Lakota have this thing with grandmother and grandfather energy that they make sure is instilled in the granddaughter, grandson, so that the energy is able to continue on. And that's a chromatic resonance pattern, so that they're able to continue on with some part of not just nature, but what's nurtured. Because it's a huge amount. If you take these kids that were raised by wolves and their brains don't develop because they don't have the ability to produce grammar, if you look at humans without any other interaction with other humans, they will become animals again. And so we've got to instill in our youth like higher consciousness constantly, or else we'll just dissipate it. And what we're doing is spending less and less time with our youth, and they're spending more and more time with the machine. So we're beginning this sort of transhumanist thing, I think, also. And I also wonder, like, what do you think about, what do you think of transhumanism, and what do you think of, where's humanity going?
Yeah, that is the question. I never really got into in my films the modern understanding of transhumanism. I kind of stopped shy at that, and that wasn't for any reason because I disagreed with it. It was because I was really kind of amazed by the research that was coming in from the community. But in Esoteric Agenda, one of my favorite moments is when I'm describing the attributes of God that are being taken over by technology. So omniscience, all-knowing, data, big data. It's bigger than big oil now. You have omnipresence, the ability to be everywhere at once. Well, you can kind of say that because of the socio-political and militarized structuring that we have that gets into media, and all these are offshoots of that same complex. That is omnipresence everywhere, and its main vehicle is technology. And then so we have omniscience, omnipresence, and omnipotence, all power. And so also like cameras everywhere. Everyone is holding up a phone in a park with cameras going in both directions, recording audio at all time. You can have this thing in a Faraday fucking bag. It doesn't matter. You're everywhere. So big data has it, and that's kind of where I think transhumanism is going. It's already happening, and this is why conversations like, why do you need to go to the Amazon and try ayahuasca? Or you can't go to the Amazon, why do you need to try something from the Amazon to click you back into nature or to connect you back in with your roots? And I think it's because if you remove your understanding of time, thinking of the ancient past and the distant future, this idea of the ancient past as being our roots and our connections to what we've come from. But technology, we are technology. We are a biological technology that's fucking ancient and brilliant. We produce technology. So then we start producing technology that makes our job easier and more efficient. You don't have to have a phone. You don't have to have a computer. You are subject to 5G soon, you are subject to all these things, but you choose your level of involvement on a moving train, meaning it's not completely neutral. It's not all about your choice. It's also what's contextually happening here. So there's a lot of people who are, I think, the annoyance with New Age are people who don't feel like they have enough gravity and feet on the ground, and well, life is whatever you make it. Up to a certain point, and then contextual reality starts to fucking govern that and keep it from 7 billion magicians creating like mad. We are magicians, but we're immature magicians because we don't know what to do with the power. We need governing structures. We really do, because we are brilliant and we are powerful. And this is why I started getting away from the direct conspiracy, let's point out families, institutions, and that's really like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, come at me, bro. That's kind of the attitude. So when I started realizing that, like, okay, how would I do this if I were not to incite specific people's, like, I am this institution, I built this from the ground up, and yada, 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 identity, identification, yada, yada. How would I take a different approach? And that's putting the finger right on the pulse that everyone is connected by. We all have the power to be awful and awesome. And we all display that. And that's what life is, a series of evolving, undulating changes based upon our decisions, informing our character, passing it on to the 7 generations in front of us and beyond, that really propagates who and what we are, our impact in reality. And I'm going to bring it back to ayahuasca, because what ayahuasca really does is it strips away your forgetting of how this facade was created. This facade was created, we are all hypnotized by our own language and artifacts. We are all walking around hypnotized by a tune that we forgot is even playing. It's so monotonous. It's that one song, that universe that keeps fucking pounding inside of us. It's the heartbeat that keeps us going in most of our senses. And then you get to Rudolf Steiner, where he's talking about the higher faculties are melodic, they're artistic. They're brilliant. They don't just speak like this. It's musical, it's rhythmic, it's geometrical. It brings it back to a point. It has patterns nested within patterns. That's why I wanted to become a filmmaker, and ayahuasca helped me become a filmmaker, and that's the answer to the question you did not ask me.
That's the best question. I was worried that other people have asked you that already, but I don't think you've ever said that Rudolf Steiner and ayahuasca inspired you. That's the best answer.
Very closely related.
Because those are basically similar answers to myself and a few people that I respect. So I like that.
Oh, for real?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. God, Rudolf Steiner's like, I mean, God, have you seen him with a mullet when he was young? He was pretty cool.
No, I refuse to look at Rudolf Steiner with a mullet.
When he's young, he was pretty hardcore.
Yeah,
you can imagine young Rudolf Steiner. Yeah.
It'll ruin me. And anthroposophy.
It's like young Indiana Jones or young Madame Blavatsky. There were young versions of them. You know?
Yeah. Dude, I never seen any early ones of H.P. Blavatsky either.
Yeah, she was kind of weirdly attractive.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Fucking those eyes.
Yeah. So wait, let's be real here. This is the weirdest thing ever, right? Like this guy, you know, Ben comes in here and he knows about Tartary, and that's before I know who he is. Sure. Yeah. Oh yeah, Tartary. You guys like Tartary? So this was crazy. He's heard of Tartary, and then afterwards I was like, "Oh, who are you? You make document? Oh yeah." Because like, I'd sent him an email once. I was like 15. I was like, I gotta interview him, but I was like, he responded. But I was like, I don't have a show. So now we're here, like as dutiful as ever, keeping his word. He's down. So,
yeah.
So that's crazy.
I remembered, but I didn't remember.
Right. Yeah. The ego, the consciousness.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
It's something, dude. Like seriously, this shit happens all the time, no matter where I go. And it's really it's eerie how much I know it's going to happen before it happens. That's really not about me at all. It's just strange where like when I first saw you, when you came up and shook my hand, like instantly came up and just shook my hand. You were just like, hey, I'm me, I'm here. I almost knew it at that point. But I get people that say that they saw these films that I made with like no training whatsoever, never went to school for it, and honestly, you can kind of tell when you look at it. You can tell I came from music, so I kind of understood editing. But the bottom line is I guess this is kind of like calling all artists and calling all filmmakers. If you're into this shit, start fucking producing media. Seriously, it doesn't matter whether you think you're good enough technically, because I'm still not good enough technically to do what a lot of people say a professional movie maker would do. But calling all filmmakers, it's about the message, and it's about how you bring it. And I'll just leave it at that. Like, I think there's a few topics that are lingering around that really like will change your grandmother and grandparents' paradigm if put the right way. So that's my calling card to y'all. Like, let's get some fucking collective something or another, a hurricane going.
So how did you find out about Tartary though? Like what was
Max Egan.
Oh, okay, Max Egan, right? It's the
Crow House.
Crow House. Awesome.
Yeah, he made mention to it, and you know when he talks about a topic, I know him personally. I know how much research he does on every single topic. So when he talked about it, and he was even honest about, but man, there's people that have done way more research than me. Go check them out. I believe it's worth looking into, and that's enough for me. You know, I respect this guy's his perspective. I respect how he sees reality, and so I started looking into it. I saw there's a couple podcasts I got. There was a Half-Baked podcast.
You saw Baked and Awake or Half-Baked?
Baked and Awake.
You saw Baked and Awake? Oh my God! Yeah. He's gonna blow his mind. He's gonna blow his mind. Yeah.
So I saw that, and then I listened to another one. I can't remember. It's probably on my phone, where it was a group of people, and it was kind of comedic, and they were talking about like Thor or Superman legend or something like in the podcast. It was really long. They dropped Max Egan's name in there. So through podcasts, I looked a little deeper. Then there's this guy, you've probably seen him. He screen shares, and he's I'm pretty sure it's Russian accent that I'm hearing.
Philip Druzhinin.
Yeah. So I started. He talks a lot about Napoleon. That's where I started, and I just started going through his stuff, and I was like, okay, mind blown. Need to take a nap. Then I started basically just doing my own independent research, looking into Anatoly Fomenko, looking into people who oppose the chronology but like the ideas, and just kind of filling in the blanks. And there's a lot of blanks being filled just by realizing that the more you go out and research, if you've been into conspiracy theories, a lot of these things will start linking up, and they'll become like a neural hub of like, oh, this shit actually creates this different visual and history context of the world. And it's interesting to look, okay, yeah, maybe something catastrophic could have happened just a couple hundred years ago, or just 150 years ago. I think when I first heard about it, Max was talking about there's this Piri Reis map, maybe. There's one right before 1600 and then right after 1600, and something happened to the North Pole and Friesland, and a lot of these islands around the poles were missing.
Right.
And
Thule, yeah.
When you look at the original map, there's ports, there's shit written down. Like, this is charted territory.
Cities, yeah.
And then looking deeper, and they're being like, well, there's actually places.
It's like that.
Right? That there's actually like places that still exist, but you won't find them on Google Earth. There's no fly zones around them, and they actually do exist. So
totally.
That was, I can't say that I've gone, there are no bottoms to these rabbit holes, but I've gone as deep as I could go while still having a family and maintaining my family.
Yeah.
So, but I try to go as deep as possible with a lot of these things and not discount it. When Flat Earth came out, everyone was like, what do you think about it? Like, I'm either like, I'm pro-Trump or I'm anti-Trump. It's one or the other. You gotta be standing on one of these two platforms. And I was like, I don't fucking know. And in a sense, I was getting annoyed by the urgency for people to answer it right now. I was like, there's conspiracies that have been answered for decades or hundreds of years. You can wait a couple years. Like, build your thesis. Don't be so angry. Come out with a voice. And like, I know plenty of people that are fucking schooling me on it. I'm like, dude, you're far smarter than me. I can't do the math of curvature in my head right now. You could totally be right. I don't know as much about like the Earth and the globe theory as possible. One of my good friends, Santos Bonacci, he totally went down that track, and then Max Egan stays on the other side of the track, and here I am like, I don't fucking know half as much as either of you. I'm going to stay out of this shit.
I know what you mean.
I had people saying like, dude, I used to believe in everything you said up until I realized that in Chimatica you didn't say anything about flat Earth. I was like, dude, I hadn't even heard of this fucking thing.
I get that all the time. If I say the word planet, people will unfriend me. Or, or unad, and they'll comment. It's crazy. Yeah. Because planet geology.
Well, Earth theorists.
Globalists. Globalists.
Yeah.
Globs, but,
And dude, like, no disrespect to anybody. I am fucking proud to say that we live in a world where people can come out and say, you know what, fuck this model. I'm going to go back to 500 years ago when I think people had it a bit more straight.
Yeah, start over.
And for me, I'm like, we could be in Hollow Earth, what they say, like
ideally.
Earth idea. I think it's a fucking hologram.
Yeah, hologram. And
I still don't know calculus, guys. Don't ask me too many questions. Like, seriously, like.
But we stood there as soon as we met. It was like boom, 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 boom. Like chronology, flamenco, hologram, electric Earth. We
had to go there.
Yeah, it was instant. It was like 30 seconds.
You know what it was? It's like two guys at the gym coming up and shaking hands for the first time.
Do you even flamenco, bro?
No, and just like kind of squeezing.
Yeah.
She said, "Oh yeah, you know that shit? Oh yeah, Tartarian. Oh yeah,
like
electric. I got some electric fucking university.
All right,
fashion, motherfucker.
Fascia.
He went off from fascia. It's this kind of mercy game.
Fascia.
Going on. Yeah,
dude.
Yeah, I go into fascia.
Dude, you should. People love fascia. Stellium 7 does a whole thing on how there's like giant. Like the Earth being turtles and elephants. I think this is more fun even than just like the idea of leviathans being alive and fascia. So,
dude, I've wondered that, and people are saying that the Appalachian Mountains used to be higher than the Rocky Mountains. I'm like, well, this was after a joint. I was like, dude, what if the whole thing is turning on its side, and that's why the oldest trees are on the West Coast? Like the sequoias and the fucking ancient shit.
dude,
right?
Dude.
Pando.
Right.
Anybody heard of Pando? 100,000-year-old root system somewhere on the other side of the Sierra Mountains from California. 100,000 years old. What does this root system think about?
Yeah.
On its day off?
We've got all these ideas about, like, you know, like mycelial networks that are bringing things, but like, what if it's not just meatball blobs? Like, what if there really are sophisticated, like, superorganisms that were large?
It has to be, dude. Mycelium can detect plants over there and say, oh, you need more calcium, so I'll send out oxalic acids to break this shit down to send it over to you. Give me a break. Like, it's not intelligent. There's an awesome Paul Stamets film. I don't know if it's his film, but there's a film coming out called The Fantastic Fungi.
Oh, yeah.
Got some awesome visuals in there. I mean, dude, of course there's intelligence to the planet. And of course we are an iteration of it. You know, we hold our microbiome on the inside, whereas the earth gives it freely and it's open source. You know, we're more compartmentalized, and we put our roots on the inside, we put our food to turn into fertilizer on the inside. We have neurology in our gut, we have neurology in our heart, we have neurology in our brain. They're always communicating, they're generating fields outside of us, we're communicating with, of course, there's intelligence, and there's no separation between us and it. We just happen to think mostly reductionist nowadays, where we're like, well, there has to be some separation where this does not communicate to that. That's the default. That's the, you know, Descartes, that's the default, saying like, well, everything is individual things. We're noticing that when we get down to smaller and smaller things, that they're all individual and they're all doing their own thing, and it's all chaos if they bump into one another. And to me, it's just a song. It's a cymatic experiment happening. And the song is that thing I was talking about earlier. It's always fucking pumping. It's changing. It's evolving, but it's always pumping.
I get that political body thing too, because you were saying the fascia, and you know, we were talking about the gut and the you know, the mind as being, like, you know, executive, legislative, and judicial branch of a political body.
I like this guy.
Right, well, okay, Antigua Tech. So a lot of these pictures are from a guy, Victor Boog, and he's in Denmark, and he reads like old books, and he does all sorts of research into like the star forts. Michael von Bodegribb, and also in Holland, the star fort research, all the battles. So it seems like what Tartary is there's a bunch of these symbols everywhere, and there were star forts, basalt forts, all over the earth. They're in Hawaii, they're in Russia, and they're in California, they're in China, they're in Italy too, but they're not from Italy. It seems like they're everywhere. So what it looks like is there's a bunch of technology, and like the World Fair was all of these giant examples of Antigua Tech. So I wonder what you think.
Potentially Tesla-ish.
Tesla-ish, yeah. Chromatic stuff, energy resonance, free energy. Do you think any of that holds water, that could have existed already?
Dude, I think it's definite that it could have existed. And here's two sides of the story. And like, forgive me for being diplomatic, but we are so brilliant that we can find connections and build stories and reshape our history. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I think, for one, the idea that we can question what shape the earth is, the idea that we can talk about a different chronological history is showing that we're waking up to, fuck what they've told me. You know? So could that have existed? Absolutely. I was born in 1983. I don't know shit before that point. I really don't. So you go back, yes, a lot of, you know, I started waking up in my 20s, I would say. It was a slow, gradual thing that happened. Eventually, it hit me like a ton of bricks. It was a bunch of things building upon themselves for me to finally wake up to, oh, this is what my ego is. And, you know, I hated it for a while, and I had to come back from PTSD of being, oh my God, I have an ego and I can't get rid of it. And then I was like, oh no, become one with it. And really, that's what Star Wars and the Matrix is all about. But when it comes to, can this technology have existed a couple hundred years ago? If technology exists today, it could have existed that long ago. Have we been lied to in history? Absolutely. Where did I get all my information from? Institutions that were birthed from Rockefeller, you know, educational systems. So like, honestly, you'd be hard pressed to say like, if you come up with a logical way of looking at it, even if it raises red flags in my research, I'm okay with that because I know that my research is fallible. And that's the one thing, dude, like all of my learning happened in the public eye. So all the criticism on my film, those are my teachers. You know, when I got something wrong in Kymatica, like this Egyptian god that I showed that was like the wrong one, I heard about it. And I heard about it so much that I learned. I learned that specific bit of detail, and I was just kind of going on and doing my thing, realizing that if I can show what awakening looks like, it was hard. My films aren't perfect. You know, like grainy quality, fucking soundtrack's too loud because I was still trying to be a musician more than a filmmaker. All of my learning was in the public eye. Doesn't matter if you learn. You know, like you could be born 50 years after somebody who's pretty fucking woke by the time you woke up, and there's this idea that we gotta catch up to them. But the thing is if you learn every single day and you maintain being the student of life, your acceleration is gonna happen just because that's the nature of patterns nested within patterns and spiraling out. So long-winded trajectory to get back to your answer. Do I believe that shit's possible? That technology, Tesla-ish, existed a couple hundred years ago? That the whole timeline of history is different? That the medieval times, dark ages, was a historical fabrication? Do I believe that certain geographical places like Egypt and Jerusalem were actually different places on Earth, and that when you're looking at things like Scythians, that they weren't just like militarized hordes, tax collectors for the Silk Road in massive ancient civilizations that used to exist? Never heard of it. I don't know what you're talking about.
Dude, this guy is amazing. I can't believe it. This is the best. This is groundbreaking. But like, okay, so where does the world go from here? What's the thing that, you know, because you said you felt like super definitive with your Lucas trilogy kind of thing. Where do you go from here? Where do you want the world to go from here?
Integrative art. And I say that as film is integrative art. It took music and it took pictures. It moved the pictures and started dancing the pictures to the music, right? And then you can talk over it. So you could hit people in the lingual centers of the brain. But then you can add suave and all this other shit to your voice so it actually hits them all along the spinal column. That's integrative art. That didn't exist, as far as we know, 300 years ago, 200 years ago, didn't exist. So our technology gave birth to a new form of art that wasn't possible, that, as far as we know, back in the day. So then you look at things like what is his name? Stephen Kotler from the Flow Genome Project. He was talking about we today are able to reproduce what our shamans were doing dancing around a fire. You could only hear that drum for maybe if you brought 100 people around. After 100 people deep in a circle, it starts to really die down. Nowadays, 100,000 people on a field, one band playing, where if it was just the band and no amplifiers or no technology, you wouldn't be able to hear a thing at the other end of the field. But now 100,000 people can be pumping to the same exact music, the same rhythm. How do you make more of an interactive experience that pulls upon people's experiences and brings them into what could potentially be, like I think Burning Man wants, and these types of festivals wants, shamanism on mass scales.
Right.
How do we bring shamanic experiences and psychoneuroimmunology, which is literally the placebo effect of a community coming together, sharing song, dance, things that move you and you move too, to change your consciousness en masse at specific times under the stars, on specific locations on the planet.
Right.
Shaman
Festivals.
Right. So now our technology is allowing us to go that way. So we're kind of returning back to this, where is this post-human, post-modern human? Where are we going with technology? Merging with technology, implanting chips, merging consciousness with, whatever, hard drive.
Mutating based on which humans that AI decides we should meet. right?
Dude, AI is an iteration. It's an unfurlment of this thing that's been happening for eons.
Totally.
Eons.
We're basically AI. I feel like we're kind of like AI is just We're it's a pattern recognition system where we see patterns. We see hidden patterns.
Perfect way of saying it.
And
It's consciousness understanding different chambers of compartmentalized consciousness. And when a bubble bursts and a paradigm shifts, two chemical potions merge and that transformation happens. And it's like the chrysalis and the fucking worm needs, or the butterfly needs to come out, after its transformation. So like this is the pressures and the strain that we feel in modern times. Like we're always close to end times, and we're always, I've always felt that mythology could be here to make us think certain things at certain times, like, oh shit, 2012, this whole thing's gonna happen. They could have made that up fucking 80 years ago. They could have been like, you know what, we're gonna decode this shit and say we're experts, and we're going to make something happen at 2012. I don't know, I like thinking outside the box, because to me it's gotten to the point where it's not about the individual pieces of information that you think, because it's like, that's in the Tao Te Ching, you try and hold the river and it's not yours anymore. You're doing nothing for it. Anything you try and grip onto, these details. Did it really happen? Was it on this date? I love that, because it can cause you to go into an altered state of consciousness to question the fabric of reality, not to grip onto information and details. That's why I wasn't too butthurt when it came, people criticizing the details of my work. I was more upset when I asked Michael Tartarian, can I use some of your work in my film? And he gave me the permission to do it. And I knew very little about like what the common parlance is that you would, how would you go about that? And I just released an extended trailer that had his work in it, but no credits. And it ruined this relationship with this guy that I honestly always wanted to be one of my teachers. And so for me, like, it's more about relationships. That's the only reason why I illustrate that, is because it's more about the relationships we build rather than you remember that back in 2012 when you were wrong?
Yeah.
Remember that shit? It's like, you weren't wrong. What are mistakes? What is learning? How is intelligence merging and integrating and developing itself? None of us fucking know. None of us have it figured out. I haven't heard one satisfactory explanation, because I don't think when you put it into words, you're even hitting the right centers inside people. None of us fucking know. And even if you could put it in words, it wouldn't work. It's the internalization of it. The current temple, the current church is relationships. And that's why this is so fucking cool, because we literally met
like minutes before this.
Never had this plan, and why is this moment happening? Why is this conversation happening? Probably because aliens or ayahuasca.
Yeah.
It's got to be one of the two.
Hopefully ayahuasca, because it's more local. I like to shop local.
Well, I think the aliens actually brought it via King Solomon, gave it to the UDV church specifically, who's the one true church.
That's Billy Mayer. That's right, Billy Mayer's thing. We were just talking about that the other night. That's pretty interesting. But that's the thing. You'll find some flat earthers, like some of the more interesting things is that they're against the idea of outer space because they believe in inner space and that holographic dimension, so that it actually relates back to like extremely low frequency beings and the Schumann resonance and back to kymatics. So,
and people fucking with quantum consciousness, and producing yourself thousands of years in the future, so you can come visit yourself and show you what you'll look like, or show you what you'd be doing, or show you what your trajectory is. And I've heard many different ideas, and I love it. They could all be feature films, every single one of them. But the inner space being reflected in outer space, and the holographic side of this, I get that more, regardless of whether that's the best way of explaining it. I get it more that way, because I believe that we are magicians, and I believe that people like Sir Roger Penrose and Stewart Hammeroff, when they're talking about how psychedelics potentially push quantum coherence into microtubules inside the neurons, which can account for quantum computations, that psychedelics can push you into that quantum realm, then what's a shaman? What's a shaman? A quantum realm surfer? Someone who can go into the potential states of photons and influence reality in a sense, behind the scenes, before the light hits the prism, if you will. So to me, like, that's why I bring up psychedelics.
This is just so incredible. I can't believe that you were you showed up like the Mountain Muhammad moment. He's just here. It's crazy. But I'm so grateful and I'm so excited for all the words that you shared. And like, any closing things that you want to say, man? Like, appreciate it. Also, yeah, one more question actually. I just realized.
Shoot.
Any warning that you would give people to make sure? And everyone's trying to go positive and away from negativity. But like, what would you say is like the most important thing to be careful about?
That you're waking up. Warning. It's happening. You know, you many of us are slowing it the fuck down at all costs, but we're waking up. Warning. None of y'all, including myself, has it figured out. None of us know what lies on the other side of it, of this transformation, but we're waking up. We're seeing it in the planet. We're seeing it in ourselves. We're seeing it on the media. It doesn't matter whether it's co-opted or not. It's all the same fucking intelligence. We're waking up. Warning.
It's beautiful.
Sorry to break it to y'all.
The most recent Tartarian, Ben Stewart, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks. Good night.